Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Bible Thumping Wingnut Podcast. It is Resurrection Sunday, and you're listening to episode number 180. What did I label it? 181.
Warning, the Bible Thumping Wingnut Podcast is a Christian program that may contain graphic descriptions of death, burial, and resurrection, and may not be suitable for those who deny the God who created them. Repentance and faith is advised. You're listening to the Bible Thumping Wingnut Podcast, the podcast that's safe for the whole family.
Unless your family contains professing atheists.
That's right. 3 weeks in a row now. Sunday night. Back to doing Sunday nights with the Bible Thumping Wingnut Podcast right here live on the BTWN YouTube channel. Tim Hurd, the Bible Thumping Wingnut guy. If you don't know what you're watching, go to BibleThumpingWingnut.com. This podcast is one of about a dozen on the Bible Thumping Wingnut Network. Podcasts, blog articles, and one yearly event. Go to BibleThumpingWingnut.com. Check it out. Registration for the Builder Summit should become live this week. President Trump has announced that the Builders Summit will not be hindered at all by COVID-19. We heard official news that's on all the news networks. If you haven't seen that, don't worry about it. It's happened. I proclaim and decree that it has, and we'll be fine. Today, joining me is Brother Jonathan Bradford, my friend from Canada, Edmonton, Canada. Who is Jonathan Bradford? How did we meet?
Man, it's been a long time. First of all, good evening. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
We met online I'm sure it was somewhere on Facebook or possibly on YouTube, just in reference to apologetic stuff. I think it was it would have been just a few months before you started the podcast.
So
yeah,
you had seen that, like, the YouTube channel started August of 2012. Cy Ten Bruggen Kate was on that fall a couple times. And so the whole presuppositional argument hit the great debate community on YouTube in the world. And the atheist folks were working on their response to that. And I don't really know. Did we meet through Colin Pearson or Sean Boatman?
It would have been one of those two. Way back in the day, Colin and Sean and I interacted a fair bit, quite regularly. And yeah, he was instrumental in the start of your podcast. So that's it would have been around that time. It was probably, I'd guess anywhere in 3 to 6 months before the podcast started that we would have met. Just sort of kept in touch over the years, and it has been good. I've definitely been blessed by your ministry. So I think I've been on with you maybe 2 times before,
but never by yourself.
That is true. I'm just a sidekick. I'm always someone else's sidekick.
So now you have to carry the whole show.
No. Tonight I'm your sidekick.
So I'll tell my audience. I appreciate Jonathan. When the whole presuppositional argument came out, which I don't 100% hold to as I used to, but when that whole thing came out in the great debate community, that's what you call it on YouTube, the great debate community. In the biblical world, there is no debate. It's truth versus error or suppression of truth. But I'm a slow learner. Like I'm not I'm not quick to learn new things. So I look to really people who understand concepts better than I do to explain them to me, and explain them to me from different angles until I really can get a grasp on them. And Jonathan is one of the people who has really helped me to think and to understand the presuppositional argument, to understand apologetics, to answer my questions. And way back when, so that's who Jonathan is, and we've tried to keep in contact through telephone calls, and most recently through Marco Polo. He's one of about 20 men that I communicate with on Marco Polo now that help encourage me and straighten me out and help me out with biblical concepts and just an encouragement to me. But Jonathan's the guy that always favors honesty, biblical concepts, being truthful, and direct. It doesn't beat around the bush. And you know, when I'm in error, or when somebody, Jonathan will tell me the truth no matter who he's talking about, whether it's me or another network partner. He just speaks the truth and says, hey, this is what I think, and you ought to think about this. And he's had a big impact on my thinking, and I really, really appreciate Jonathan. So that's why he's here this week. He's in Edmonton, Canada. So right now, where I live, it is 7:24 p.m. What's it where you are?
I'm 2 hours away. I'm 5:24.
Is some time of the year, is it 3 hours away?
No, I think we do daylight savings the same as you.
Okay. I thought it was farther than that.
Yeah.
You're like
I do have to say that if you're looking to me to be learning from, brother, you're in a little bit of trouble.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
I look at all the guys that you look at out there to try and learn from are the same guys that I look to learn from. So
and
I think
I forgot the other characteristic of Jonathan is he's very humble. Also, he's very humble. Yes.
I strive to be someone who is tells the truth and is willing to look at something and be a little bit blunt and direct. Gets me into trouble sometimes, but I think that's probably the best way to live life. You know what? I think that's the way that we should be.
So I want to talk to you about a friend of mine sent me a Marco Polo right before we started. And he suggested the topic of, or the discussion on, are we going to be okay with the epidemic? Are we going to be okay? And I know what your answer is, but let me just throw that out to you.
Short answer, absolutely. Longer answer, I would say define okay from a biblical definition of anything that a biblical concept of okay could ultimately mean, then absolutely. There's in the grand scheme of things, in the big picture, we really have nothing to worry about. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, there aren't any day-to-day concerns to come out of this, but you know, you look at the major principles of the Christian life. You know, when you are a child of God, He promises to care for you. He promises to look after you. So, really, no big reasons to fear. Actually, funny little story. A mutual friend of ours, Anthony Silvestro. I know you know who he is. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's flying back to where he lives. I'm flying back to where I live. We're sitting in the airport having a discussion about, you know, if we truly believe Romans 8:28, that God takes everything and works it for His glory and for our good. If we're truly convinced of that truth and that promise, then really there's nothing to fear in life. And we, you know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes talking about that and details of that. And then he gets on his plane and I got on my plane and I land in Houston to, you know, for my connecting flight. And I was flip open my phone and just scrolling through Facebook and find out a mutual friend of Anthony and I is posting that, well, Anthony phoned him or contacted him from his plane that one of the engines was on fire in the plane and wasn't entirely sure what was going on there. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, first of all, there's a concern for my friend Anthony a little bit. There's not a huge ultimate concern because I know he's saved and God's looking after him. But then there's this irony of, we were just talking about that, like literally right before we got on the plane, just talking about the concept of no matter what life throws at you as far as the circumstances, God is absolute 100% trustworthy. He's 100% sovereign. And so really, what do we have to fear? All we need to worry about is, am I responding to the circumstances in my life in a godly way? We look at all of life as an opportunity to glorify God and to love others. Well, is that what I'm doing? Is that how I'm responding? Let God deal with the circumstances that come into my life, and I'll strive to respond to them in a godly way. So yeah, are there details of this current pandemic that we need to work through, that we might have concerns about? You know, if someone loses a job and goes, well, where's the money going to come from? Well, first thing I can do is trust in God's promises. You know, he says he looks after the sparrow. He, cares for the grass in the field, or the flowers in the field. He cares for these things. How much more won't he care for us? So yeah, I don't need to be worried in a worldly sense. I can use godly wisdom as to how to navigate my circumstances and best put on display the love of Christ in them. So that's sort of the longer answer, my answer anyway. Will we be okay as a Christian? Yeah, Christians will absolutely be okay.
But you give a little caveat there, a huge caveat, if you're a Christian, right?
For an unbeliever, I would say, yeah, there's definitely things to worry about. And it's not so much the pandemic. Jesus says, you don't need to worry about him who can kill the body and after that do nothing, but be concerned about him who can kill the body and then after that destroy both body and soul in hell. The pandemic is a very, very small picture of the pandemic of sin that we, as humans, are born into. We are all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. And yeah, if someone is to die in their sin unrepentant, then yeah, they've definitely got something to worry about. So yeah, anything that brings death closer to an unbeliever is definitely something concerning.
Amen.
So yeah, you look at various different stresses or trials in life, whatever may be the cause and whatever they may be, definitely causes people to, a lot of people, some people are oblivious, but a lot of people take time to focus a little bit more on the important things in life, have more questions, wondering about things. So as Christians, that's a great opportunity for us to go out and share the gospel and be willing to tell people about, the hope, not just hope from avoiding illness, because that's a small hope to have. Hope from avoiding the wrath of God and judgment to come, and hope of being united to Christ and all the joy and blessing that comes with that. So,
what are they doing at your local assembly?
As far as like the gathering?
Yeah, what's it like even in Canada, maybe compared to United States, if you know what's going on in Canada, or if you know what's going on in the United States?
I'm not one to speak on behalf of Canada, but I think in general Christians are probably a little bit more passive in that. I think more churches would be
more passive in Canada.
Okay.
More passive in Canada.
Yeah, more passive in Canada to say, oh, you know what? Well, if we can't gather in person, well, then let's see what we can do to continue reaching out to people, to continue doing all the things that a church should do if we have to set aside a Sunday regular gathering for the time being.
Are
So
are you
yeah, there's
are you meeting still or no? You're not.
no, not in-person meetings. But so the church that I go to regularly is doing uh, live streaming of a worship service at regular times on Sunday morning. Pastors are sending out emails quite regularly to stay in contact, and also to try and be more interactive, I guess, in a little bit, instead of just, hey, here's a video stream for you to watch it, but like trying to involve various different aspects that you would see on a Sunday morning, trying to do as much as you can in regards to that, doing an online service. I've also been visiting a friend's church a lot recently, just to learn how they do church. It's a home church. Probably on average, I think the number would be around 50 to 60 people total.
In home 50 to 60.
Yeah.
Wow.
A large number of those would be kids, because there are some
that makes it worse. That makes it worse.
But and they've been doing a Zoom meeting like this. I think it was Microsoft Teams was the first time that it was done. So yeah, I've been a part of that a few times, and that's a little bit more. It's a little better than just sort of sitting and watching a live stream, but yeah, the ability to interact more, to converse, a little bit better for the concept of gathering. Same thing. I'm part of a weekly Bible study Friday evenings. We've been using Zoom for that for the past number of weeks, and part of a men's group that meets on Mondays that we've been using Zoom as well.
I think it's really interesting, because I think most churches, we don't like the idea of doing this online.
Yeah.
But we're reaching people. We're actually reaching some people who we wouldn't have reached.
Yeah.
There are some people going to Zoom meetings that wouldn't show up to the Wednesday night Bible study or to the morning service.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's biblical. I'm not saying that, I'm very much against saying, hey, you can do church from home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not the same.
There are plenty of aspects that you can do from home, but there's also some that you can't.
Right. And the most important ones you can't.
But I like your optimism. I like the fact that you're looking for the good side of things and going, okay, well, if I'm in this season of life, what are the good things that come out of it, and be able to go, yeah, there are more people, able to participate. And not only that, but you've got unbelievers who are going, okay, it's Easter season, so I'm hearing more about Christianity to begin with, and I'm dealing with this pandemic that, there are people out there who are living in some pretty big fear over this, and going, okay, well, maybe I should think about the things of the more important things in life. And yeah, maybe they'll check out a church's website when they might not have gone through the front door. One of the definite positives out of this is way more churches nowadays are putting so much more of their teaching online, being way more focused on social media and interacting, that kind of stuff. So it's making more connections. It's a different type of connection. It's missing out on some aspects of the in-person connection, and there are definitely negatives to what's going on. I'm not going to downplay the negatives, but I am definitely excited about the positives.
Yeah. Our church averages 55, maybe 59 people on a Sunday morning, and that includes children. We have a beautiful building, sanctuary, would seat 100 comfortably, but the average Sunday morning worship service, the adults in the sanctuary, less than 40 or about 40. Mm-hmm. And today our our online average, because we broadcast. I'm one of 4 people who go to church, the building. The pastor goes, I go, the young lady who sings and plays the piano, and her mother. The 4 of us go to church, building, and we broadcast the service. And there were more people watching the last 2 weeks than the average that sit in the congregation. And some of those are multiple people watching the thread. And for a church that averages less than 60 people, one of the sermon that we did a couple of weeks ago, well, they're averaging over 700 people dropping by and at least watching for 3 seconds or more. I mean, admittedly, hundreds of those are watching for a very short time. But if just 100 people are watching for a long period of time, that's triple what normally shows up. So God is using this. God uses everything, right? God brings all this God brings all of this to accomplish His will.
Yeah.
And I can see that He's using this to draw people to Himself through this medium. Mm-hmm. He didn't need this medium.
No.
But He's using this medium right now, right? And that is interesting. Also the other interesting impact that bothers me, and again, God is using it to divide the goats from the sheep. There's a lot of bad churches who are really good at social media, who are promoting their services, promoting their content, and promoting the idea that you never need to come to our church. Just watch online. And those churches who have prepared in that manner and who are familiar with technology, they are drawing many, many people away from local assemblies right now.
Which is definitely unfortunate.
Unfortunate, but God's using it for His purposes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? And that's a very biblical thing as well. You look at the persecution of the early church. You know what? They hung around Jerusalem for quite a while, and then God turns around and uses the persecution that starts. What is it? Acts chapter 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. That the persecution gets pretty significant, and so many of the believers just time to get out of Jerusalem, and then the gospel just starts exploding elsewhere. You look at Paul and his missionary journeys. Well, it's persecuted and run out of one town. That's bringing the gospel to the next town. So, it is. I do find it fascinating and amazing and glorious how God uses that. Like so many different bad and negative things, there are so many ways that He turns around and causes good out of them.
Yep. I need everything to be back to general normality by I have 4 more weeks.
4 more weeks of
till May 15th. I'm going camping for a month. So actually I called the campground. Oh, we have a wonderful campground.
Yeah.
That is it's about a half hour from my house. It's 25 minutes from my church. And we're going to set up our camper there for a month. I thought this is going to be a good idea. So I'm setting up the camper in May 15th till June 15th. Now, Jonathan, tell me this isn't a good strategy. Like, you can pay for a month, right?
Yeah.
And I chose May 15th to June 15th because actually there are 5 weekends during that time period, one of which is Memorial Day weekend. So if I'm going to pay for a month, I'm going to get all the bang for my buck I can get.
Maximize the number of weekends
right.
you can get.
So I'm going to park my camper down there, and it'll be all set up, and it's glamping. It's not camping. They have water, they have water, sewer, electric, cable and better Wi-Fi than I have at my home. Seriously. So, and so we'll be there on weekends, and I might take a few days off during the week, but we'll still be working. And in regards to working, my wife and I, we really are fortunate in this situation.
Yeah.
Because
you're keeping busy.
We both have our jobs.
Yeah.
And we can't think of another couple that husband and wife still have their jobs. Now, I have a relative, Jonathan, listen to this. This is great. I have a relative who normally makes a certain amount of money, and because she's laid off, she makes twice as much.
Oh, wow.
On unemployment. Because she makes up to an extra $600 a week. Because of the $2.2 trillion. Yeah. She is making.
Heard that there were some ways that certain people in certain circumstances might end up actually getting.
Absolutely. If you and I worked at the local warehouse, we have a lot of warehouses around here. If you and I both worked there, and they laid off me, and they didn't lay off you, I could file for unemployment and make more money than you, who's still working, staying at home on unemployment.
Well, thankfully,
that's a great plan, isn't it?
Well, thankfully, if it was you, I know that you would use the time, redeem it wisely. You'd be putting out more videos. You'd be doing more stuff with the network and creating more content and reaching out to people. So I wouldn't feel so bad if it was you and I next to each other and you end up in that situation, because I know you're going to do good things with that.
Yeah, I always make all the right choices.
Well, I'm not saying that, but in general, you're going to go in that direction. Might not be perfect pinpoint accuracy, but in general, I'm confident that you will go in that direction. So I've always, in my work situation, I work in the aviation industry. And I still have a job, but our hours have been cut back a lot, mainly because there's a lot of overtime. And I used to always work under the philosophy of, if the overtime is there, I'll work it and strive to do good things with the money. If it's not there, then I will have lots of free time and I'll strive to do good things with my free time. And throughout my career in general, there's been a lot of overtime available. So that's what I've done. Now all of a sudden there's zero overtime and I'm going, wow, I'm spending more time at home than I do at work. And so now I'm in that mode of, okay, I got to find good things to do with my time way more than I used to in general in life. So yeah, striving to do that. And, there's a part of me that goes, is that situation that you've described unfair for some people? Probably. At the same point in time, as you're trying to, I try and give the benefit of the doubt to leaders right now in the world, political leaders. Man, they got a hard job in a lot of different ways, and go, what's the Bible call us to do? Pray for them. They definitely need our prayer, and go, you know what? They're not going to be able to come up with a solution that makes everyone happy in all circumstances. Things are going to fall through the cracks. Things are going to end up being unexpected.
Benefit of doubt. Doubt? How did you say that?
Making fun of my Canadian accent again.
Doubt. Hey, let's talk about the Builders Summit.
Yeah, I couldn't go last year. I was quite disappointed, but this year I'm definitely putting it on my calendar far enough in advance.
What do you know about the speakers? Let's gossip. Let's gossip about the speakers. Let's get all the dirt on the Builders Summit speakers.
Can we try and do it in a non-gossip way?
No.
I might have to abstain.
Just kidding. How do I have these, you can't see what I'm doing, but this OBS program that I have, later on when you watch the YouTube video, you'll see everything that I've been doing.
OBS? Does that stand for Online Builder Summit?
OBS broadcasts. I should know what OBS means. So, like right now, above your head is the Builders, or right above my head is the Builder Summit logo. Above your head is the BTWN network. There's so much I can do with this. In the future, good news, Penelope Pit Stop. In the future, I'm going to be putting comments up. And at that time, I'll encourage you to not share as many comments because she just fills up the whole thing. But anyway, in the future, I'm like, OBS can do so much. It's like a system of putting images and camera angles and logos and videos and all kinds of stuff in there.
Gotcha. So you could do like an instant replay live on your broadcast?
I suppose I could, but I'm not set up to do that right now. So, yeah.
The speakers. Who are the speakers?
There's, I might have to go to the website. A registration is going to open. Like, let me do this. BuildersSummit.org. There it is. Second annual Builder Summit will be November 13, 14, and 15. Registration date will be announced soon. That's as far as I can go on this computer because I don't have the sign in. But anyway, Austin Hessler.
I have heard the name, but I do not know who that is.
And you claim to watch Bible Thumping Wingnut content?
I don't know if I made that claim.
Austin Hessler, Christ the Rock Church.
Okay.
His content normally is uploaded and released on the network every Sunday morning. I'm a little behind in uploading those, but those are going to become a constant again very soon. Great guy. Who's he associated with? Jesus.
Excellent.
He's a pastor of a small church. He's a great guy. I was going to say he's a small man. He is a short guy, but man is he smart, and man is he dedicated to Christ, and man can he communicate wonderfully. A great guy. Austin Hessler, Christ the Rock Church. First time I met him, I was in Cleveland. I was there with Anthony Silvestro and others, and we were at some college and doing open air ministry, and I didn't know who Austin was. And he walked up, and the guys on the outreach greeted him, and I thought, okay, this seems quite unassuming fellow, shy, right? And then he stood up on the stone wall and started to roar the gospel with no notes. I don't think he even had a copy of the scriptures in his hands, but he was quoting scripture left and right, and his voice just roared with such authority. God was honored and proclaimed. I at that moment, I needed to know more about Austin Hessler.
Who is this guy?
Yeah. So he spoke last year. He spoke twice, and he's coming again. And Lord willing, he'll bring. Well, he brought one of his members with him, and it was such a blessing. I am behind, Jonathan. There are 8 sessions. I have edited 1 and uploaded 1.
From last year's in November?
Last year, yeah. So my task list in regards to Builder Summit is first
get on top of that.
Get the registration going, and then second, start uploading all this old content, last year's content, which will get people interested in registering for next year.
That's true. That's why the delay has happened. Is they're releasing the sessions from last year slowly over the next couple of months to build interest.
That is the plan. That was the plan all along, but I actually thought I'd have like half of them done and up by now. So Austin and another speaker is, I need to write them down, otherwise I'm going to forget one of them. Dustin Seegers.
I know Dustin Seegers.
Have you ever met Dustin Seegers?
Never in person, but chatted online a couple times over the years. Dustin Seegers, at one point, I'm not sure if this is still true, but at one point in time, I had more books on my shelf that were recommended to me by Dustin Seegers than any other person had recommended to me. He is a brilliant guy, and I definitely really appreciate anything that he has to say. And yeah, so many times he's recommended a book, and I'm like, oh, that sounds totally interesting. And I pick it up, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is absolutely fantastic. From even way back in my, when I was first getting into, just a little bit of background for me. I've been saved for about 8.5 years now.
Which is a shame. Which is an embarrassment. Well, actually, you saying you've been saved for 8 years, to me, is an embarrassment to myself. I've been saved for 40 years. And
you're putting out all this great content on the Bible Thumping Wingnut Network, and I'm not putting out anything. Well, that's not true. I'm here tonight. But anyway, so way back when I was first studying
8 years,
in-depth Bible study,
8 years,
and starting to pick up commentaries, and he recommended a couple. I still remember he said for Romans, you should really read Douglas Moo's commentary and Thomas Schreiner, and I picked those up, and I'm like, oh, I love it. Like that is what inspired my my habit of reading commentaries beginning to end. Instead of just using them as reference material to look up, but going, I'm going to sit down and I'm actually going to, pick up a commentary, start it, and read it like you would a book, beginning to end. So yeah, he been responsible for shaping a bunch of different viewpoints that I have, my understandings of Scripture. I definitely love that guy, and very, very much look forward to meeting him in person someday.
At the Builder Summit.
Hopefully.
Lord willing. I'm putting the pressure on you. Edmonton, Canada is a long way to come from. But
you know what? I know a bunch of people in the Edmonton area that listen to your podcast. Over the years you've seen Edmonton's
yes,
definitely a handful. So you've shipped T-shirts up here. I know that. You showed me once.
8 years. 8 years a Christian. 2012?
Late 2011, so about 8.5 years. Yeah, I was born and raised in a Christian home, but when I was about 18 or 19, I just sort of put all that on the shelf and wanted to live my life my own way. And even though I made a profession of faith as a teenager, I look back at that and go, that was a false profession. You just look at the fruit of my life after that and go, yeah, definitely I wasn't saved, but yeah, by God's grace in 2011, starting in the spring and then all through the summer, he just kept slowly putting all these different things in my life that woke me up to the reality that, you know what, Jonathan, there's important things that you are definitely disregarding. And yeah, so it was in late fall, early winter of 2011 that I became a Christian.
Praise the Lord.
So yeah, it's been a little bit of an intense trying to sort of catch up since then, looking at it and going, you know what, there's so much that I need to learn and so much I need to study that I have missed. You look at all those years and go, how many years did I waste?
We've got a viewer from Australia watching.
Nice.
Watching live. So Dustin Seegers, Dustin's got a podcast on the network. Austin has his church sermons on the network, and Dustin has his podcast, Bible in the Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Check those out at BibleThumpingWeekend.com. Another speaker. Have you heard of Michael Foster?
Again, I've heard that name, but I'm trying to place where I've heard that. I don't think I've had any interaction with him.
He's quite polarizing.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Wait a second. You have polarizing people on your network?
He runs the ministry of that mug right there. You can't see it. There's
good to be.
It's good to
be. A man.
Good to be.
Good to be a man.
A man. It's kind of, sorry about that. There's a glare on that.
Yeah, anyway, we're getting the reflection of your computer screen.
There's the nice mug. It's good to be a man. He also says it's good to be a woman, but
I would agree with both those statements.
the way society paints the framework of manhood and the toxicity of masculinity, he's pushing back on all that. Feminism, egalitarianism, whole bunch of stuff. And he is a lightning rod. He is a lightning rod. He's a smart guy. He's in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was booked to attend and speak and be in attendance last year. He had one of his very close friends died in a fire the week before the Builder Summit, so he was unable to attend, but we piped him in via the internet, and he was a great blessing to us. Michael Foster of the ministry, It's Good to Be a Man. Very awesome, smart guy, knows interrelational dynamics, and he counsels guys on marriage and being a father, being a parent, being a husband. He's a great asset to the Christian men's community, if there is one. So I am psyched for Austin, Dustin, and Michael. I bring in people that I like to hear, that have people who have ministered to me. That's the ones that are coming.
How many people did you have last time?
Last year we had, I think we had 25.
Okay.
And that's a good, I was excited for that. First year, 25. Yeah. I would have been happy if 10 came to get to get used to what it's like, all the logistics
of
at the location and all that was going on there. If there's 10 guys there, if there's 5 guys, if there's 4 guys there, we're going to have a great time of fellowship,
That's true.
And we expect, based on pre-registration commitments from churches, we expect 45 this next year. And so that would be great. That would be great growth. And just think of the fellowship of, I could tell you story after story after story of the impact this one weekend had on different men.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's great. I just really appreciate spending time with other men, and being encouraged and strengthened through the scriptures. There's a man who's speaking this coming year. He's a pastor from New Jersey. His name is Pastor Jeff. We'll call him Pastor Jeff K, because I forgot how to pronounce his last name. Sorry, Pastor Jeff. He's coming, and he is a pastor. He was a pastor in Philadelphia for 12 years. And he's now a pastor in New Jersey. He's been in New Jersey for, I don't know how many years. And he's got a good church there called Cornerstone Church. He's done live debates with massive heretics and atheists. He's a really, really good guy. He does a lot on the social justice front. His article on Bible Thumping Wingnut on Philadelphia's latest cult leader, I forget the name of the guy, has more hits in the last 2 years than any article written. Not hundreds, tens of thousands have read this article he wrote. And they're all people from, well, massive amounts of them go to this guy's church, and he's a blatant heretic. And so Pastor Jeff is, not only is he ministering in his local church, which has a great men's ministry, he reaches out and he confronts error in his community. And he's been a good encouragement to me, a great encouragement to me. And then the last one is Michael Coughlin. Do you know Michael Coughlin?
Again, I recognize the name, and to be honest, I think probably years ago I might have had some interaction with him online. Yeah, I recognize that name more than, well, other than Dustin, who I said I know of quite well. I recognize Michael's name more than the others.
Well, if you listen to the network podcasts, you'd know Michael Coughlin. He's in the middle of a 40.
I mostly listen to you and sometimes the Polemics Report. You put out so much content and I have so little time. Plus the fact that I'm more of a reader than a listener. Anyway, those are the excuses I'm going to live with.
Michael Coughlin's a fiery man. He's an open-air street preacher. He's been a very close friend of Len Pettis for many years.
I've heard that name as well.
Len Pettis. We got to get
I
Len.
think I recognize that one.
If Len Pettis would commit to going to the Builders Summit, he would be on this list as well.
No, I know Len pretty well. He and I talk relatively regularly.
So Michael's trying to get Len to come. That would be great. I've only seen Len in person like 3 times, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Probably. Well, maybe 4. But
I've never met Len in person, but I met you in person once. Sorry, I shouldn't say met in person, but we were at the same event and we found out afterwards.
Where did we go? The Philadelphia Herald Society?
That's the one, yeah.
I had a kidney stone that year, I think. I think I was up in the balcony in pain, laying down on a pew with a kidney stone.
When was that? 2013? 2014?
It's all a blur. It was the second Philadelphia Herald. It was probably it was the second to last Philadelphia Herald Society that I had the kidney stone. How many Philadelphia Herald Societies were there? Probably.
I don't know. I went to one. It's the only one I know.
My guess is there were 4 because I wasn't at the first and I was at 2 and I wasn't at the last. But anyway, yeah, we definitely didn't meet. Haven't met in person. But Michael Coughlin, I've recently befriended him. I listened to slanderous comments about Michael Coughlin years ago, which were not. Somebody just told me, you know what, Michael, you should stay away from Michael Coughlin. Somebody told me that. So I won't say who it was. But I've talked to Michael about this. But I knew Len knew him, but I didn't realize how close Len was to him. So I actually had an issue in my personal life, and somebody said, you know what, Michael Coughlin, he's dealt with that same situation. You should talk to him. And so I started talking to him, and he started to counsel me. And we've become close friends ever since.
Nice.
And he's one of the most godly men I know. I mean,
now you're wondering, why was I warned away from him?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't care to go and find out. You know, some people have certain. It could have just been a personality conflict. It could have been sin on the other person's part. I don't know. But for years, I did not have anything to do with the man, even though, like, Len was benefiting from having a relationship with this man, and so anyway, I have been impacted by Michael Coughlin's ministry in my own life, right? And just like everybody else on this list of speakers, I want to share these men with as many other men. Like if we're going to get together and have fellowship and do stuff together, I want these guys leading the sessions because I know how much they've ministered to me. And I'm pretty much an average guy, right? And stuff that I go through and stuff that I need to hear, other guys, I'm sure, could benefit from. So that's why I'm bringing these guys in. And I just want to have a great time of fellowship and learn and be encouraged and strengthened and exhorted. So that's what it's all about. So you asked me before this, what are we going to talk about?
You've sold me.
I did. I
will definitely sign up for the Builder Summit. You'll make it, what, 46? I think you said 45 earlier. Now you can plan for 46.
Well, those aren't, I don't count those registrations until they pay. So that's the projection, though. That's the projection. So
hopefully your borders are open and I can get in your country by then.
Would you be allowed now?
I don't know.
Are we allowing heretics in? There's a new covenant theology people.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a need to cross the border for quite a while, so I couldn't tell you whether or not what the rules are there.
How about Adam Staub? Do you know who Adam Staub is?
Yeah, he is the is it Shine the Lights? Shine the Light?
Shine as Lights.
Shine as Lights.
You know him?
I don't know. We may have talked online a handful of times, but I remember listening to that podcast when it first came out a handful of times.
He spoke last year. He's going to MC this year.
Oh yeah.
So he's going to hold the whole thing together. Look forward to having him. But I look forward to posting his session from last year. It was jam-packed with lots of information.
What was it on? You remember?
The Bible, being a man of God. And I know it was like an hour and 10 minutes long because it was the longest one.
What?
I know he'll listen to this. I'm excited he's coming. So, Jonathan Bradford, you, for a living, did we say what you do for a living?
I mentioned I work in aviation. I work as an air traffic controller at the Area Control Center here in Edmonton.
Air traffic control. You're the guy who tells airplanes to do 360s.
I think I've only ever done that once.
And you told me about it, and it was a couple of weeks ago. It was like a couple of months ago.
So I've done it more than once, I guess, because I was thinking of a previous one. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, there was some radar problems in a center that their airspace borders ours, and they had to stop taking aircraft quite suddenly for an indefinite amount of time while they worked on that. So I had a plane that was getting pretty close to leaving my airspace and entering theirs that I had to, I had to tell them, give me give me a right hand 360, and by the time you get back around in 2 minutes, I'll have more information for you.
So basically, it takes 2 minutes for them to do a complete circle.
That's the standard, what they call a rate 1 turn. You'll turn at 3 degrees per second for 120 seconds. That's 360 degrees. It takes you 2 minutes. So typically an aircraft in flight, if you're asking them to turn, they're doing what they call a rate 1 turn in general. So yeah, 2 minutes to do a 360. Planes can do much quicker or much slower, but that's in general on average.
Is being an air traffic controller really as stressful as they say it is? They say it's one of the most stressful jobs one can have.
Now you're gonna get me in trouble for letting out industry secrets.
What, that it's really easy? You don't need to take a nap every hour?
It is. It's a different type of stress. Some people find it exceedingly stressful. Other people don't find it stressful at all. I tell people, in some ways, it's similar to the job of a fireman. You know, a fireman, a lot of the time, they're not doing the stressful part of the job. But when they're doing the stressful part, it can be very stressful. Similar to an air traffic controller. There are days when, you know what, traffic is high, weather is bad, you got an airport closure, so the aircraft are being rerouted and holding, and nobody wants to fly through thunderstorms, and you know what, one of your radio frequencies goes out of service unexpectedly, and you're sitting there going, you know, why me? Why is this happening today? Kind of thing. Most days are not like that. Most days are, I would say, you know, a 15-year-old kid who's good at video games could do most of my job on one of those days that's not busy. When the stressful days happen, they can be very stressful. There have been times when I've been doing nothing but sitting in a chair for an hour, not physically moving at all, but talking nonstop on the radio to airplanes. And you get up and go for a break after an hour sitting there, and the back of my shirt is soaked with sweat. Those days are rare.
That's gross.
But you're just, you know, you're intently focusing on, there's no pause button on the radar screen. Aircraft keep moving.
How many aircraft controllers are there in Edmonton during the busy time? How many are directing planes?
On staff? Well,
how many planes do you guys do a day?
Oh, I don't know that stat, but
you lose track of some of them. Well, I don't know how many planes.
It's just, that's not something, like at any given point in time, I may be talking to 5 airplanes. I may be talking to 20 airplanes, usually somewhere in between those two numbers. But as for totals, I don't keep track of them. We work on a lot on the mindset of, you know, an aircraft comes into your airspace, you talk to them, you deal with them while they're in your airspace. And once they leave, you forget about them as quick as possible because you got more stuff to do. You deal with them while they're there. And once they're gone, you forget about them. But interesting note. So Edmonton, I heard this stat long ago. I'm pretty sure it's still true. The Area Control Center in Edmonton deals with the largest domestic airspace over land of any area control center in the world. More airspace over land is looked after out of the building here in Edmonton than any other radar center in the world. There's centers that deal with oceanic traffic over the water, over the Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean, but out of Edmonton here is run all the airspace over Alberta, northern parts of BC, and I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And then all the territories, like you look at the map of Canada, Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, all the islands up there, all the way up to the North Pole. You got a plane that's flying from Los Angeles to London, England, spends more time talking to controllers in Edmonton than any other radar center that through their flight path. We talk to aircraft that go from Eastern US over to Asia. A lot of them go up to Anchorage and stop and refuel there. So yeah, it's actually bigger and busier than you would think.
So as an air traffic controller, how hard is it for you to keep the secret that the Earth is actually flat? Is it hard for you?
I would say I get asked that question every now and then, typically by people like yourself.
Smart Alex.
It's interesting because like so much of what I do just could not work if the Earth were flat.
So
and you and I will give some viewers or listeners some background. Tim and I have talked extensively on the topic of flat earthism. I used to go to church with a guy who is one of the bigger names.
We actually should have made this whole thing about flat Earth. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I used to go to a church with a guy who's one of the bigger names in the flat Earth
community
movement.
Yeah.
And so before it even really exploded online, what we're talking 4 or 5 years ago now, this guy and I went to lunch a bunch of times and we had a lot of conversations. And so it was on my radar probably before it really exploded online. I read a lot and looked at it a lot, and it's interesting. It's fascinating. But yeah, it's like so much of what I would do. So radar coverage, you got a radar site located somewhere geographically on the ground. You know, we've got one here in Edmonton, and it can only see certain distance that like it can't see beyond the curve of the Earth. So if I've got someone who's flying, you know, if there's an aircraft that's flying at 10,000 feet, as it's close to the radar site, it can see it. But once it gets a certain distance,
how far away?
I don't know the numbers for that exactly.
See, you're keeping the secret.
Exactly.
This is, you know.
But so the radar sites that we use, you can see where aircraft are either within sight of that radar or not. Now, if the Earth were actually flat, the people who, like the data that's being fed into my system would have to be totally fake. Like they would actually have to go out and cut out some stuff that we can see because the Earth is flat and not present that information into the radar system to then present me with the data that I have on my radar screen to make decisions. So you would have to have so many people involved in faking it to present me with a whole bunch of fake data that I'm then making decisions on based on the fake data. You know what? There are people that have died in aircraft accidents because aircraft couldn't be seen on radar coverage. They were below radar coverage because of the curvature of the Earth. Like someone somewhere would have blown the whistle on all this data faking a long time ago. Anyway.
Are you saying that NASA is incapable of manipulating that data?
I'm saying that it would be entirely pointless and cause drastic safety issues that have cost people their lives.
Well, that would be just to, you know, manipulate people. I mean, the Bible says there's a great delusion coming that
is true.
Evil one.
I'm pretty sure a spheroid-shaped Earth is not the great delusion the Bible's talking about.
Spinning fireball.
It is interesting though, and during my time in researching it is fascinating. So I'm sure other people have way more in-depth study about this, but I sort of came to the conclusion that people dive into flat earthism for mainly 3 reasons. Number one, they're conspiracy theorists. As far as conspiracy theories go, this one is massive and huge, like possibly the biggest one out there. So those who love conspiracy theories and love having that inside knowledge, well, I want to be on the side of the people that have the inside knowledge. Number 2, some people are just really bad at understanding science, like just really, really bad at it. You know, you've talked with a lot of Darwinian evolutionists, like flat earthism is on the same, like they're really the same type of thing. When you can't really understand how to interpret scientific data and you don't recognize the bias that you're filtering it through. So there's those reasons. And then there are people who go, I believe some religious text teaches flat earthism, and therefore I'm going to filter all my data through that religious text. Whether it's the Bible or whether it's something else, people believe that. So those are mainly like what I found are the three reasons that people sort of get involved in flat earthism, and to one degree or another, and there's probably a combination of those reasons in there. Very interesting from a I don't know, sociological standpoint to look at that and go, how and why people come to those beliefs. But is it really different than anything else when it comes to worldview? It's back to, what? Atheists have a certain worldview, and they're going to take all that data and interpret it through that. So you go, as an apologist, if I just throw evidence at them, well, they're going to interpret it through that worldview. So I need to actually take a step back and address that worldview and go to those fundamental issues of how you have that conversation. Same thing with this.
I've got three things, if I can remember three things.
Okay, I'll stop talking then.
I think a lot of the Christians who struggled with debating with atheists on the internet, some folks who I used to associate with on YouTube, I think they jumped on the flat earth thing because it's a skeptical position. And if you want to hold to something and if you want to hold to flat earthism, it's a skeptical position, and you can deny, you can just question facts and evidence all day long, just like an atheist does. And these flat earth Christians who were debating poorly against professing atheists have become flat earthers. And now they've put the burden of proof on the atheists. Mm. A lot. I'm talking like, I know a dozen Christians who did that.
Oh, wow.
And it's an embarrassment. And then the other thing a story I have is I watched the most ridiculous video. An atheist was reviewing it. This gentleman, 60 plus years old, was serious when he was explaining how he knows the earth is flat. He held up a globe. And then he held up a toy airplane. So I've got a coffee mug and a Matchbox car. All right. Let me get my favorite one. All right. This is my favorite one. Station wagon one. This is my favorite one from when I was a kid. So this is the earth, right? And this is an airplane. And this is what he did. He says, let's say an airplane takes off from America or Greenland up here, and they're going to Australia, and they go down here and they go down this way, and this is irrefutable proof that the earth is flat, because right here, hello, it'd be flying upside down.
Everybody would be falling out of their seats and hitting the ceiling of the airplane.
Right. Planes don't fly upside down. The earth is flat. And this guy was serious.
Yeah.
And from everything that he said before that, he knew the gospel.
And that's where I would say that falls into my category too, of someone not really understanding aspects of science very well.
I'm sorry if you're listening on the podcast version, you'll have to go and watch the video version for that illustration of a Matchbox car flying around. It's good to be a man mug. And the third thing I wanted to say is a question. And I told you we're only going to be an hour, and it's been over an hour.
I'm 2 hours behind you, so it's still early in the evening for me. So I got plenty of time.
Why do planes not fly over the South Pole? Antarctica. Wait, is that what's down there?
I'm sorry, I can't I can't answer that. That's classified.
The land mass on the South Pole, is that Antarctica?
I believe that's what we refer to it as. Yeah.
Okay. With all when you talk to a flat earther, one of the first things that they'll say is there is no South Pole. There is actually no South Pole. If you want any proof for that, check out the plane routes. Right? And you are you're a guy who tells planes where to go. And
I'm not allowed to tell them to go over the South Pole.
I know. Well, why not? So
first of all,
I downloaded the Planes app. I can on the Planes app. You can track planes. You can click on any plane and say, well, that plane's going from this country to that country, from that continent to that continent. And I can look at it and say, well, duh, they should at least go over the South Pole for that, but they don't. Why don't any planes fly over the South Pole?
So grab yourself a globe. Preferably one that's actually spherical and has the map of where all the countries are and the land masses. And then pick 2 cities that would have a regularly scheduled flight between them. And take a piece of string and find the shortest route. The shortest route's always going to be like following the curve of the earth there.
Is that what you do? Do you have string at your desk?
No, we do not have string at our desk. I don't actually have to worry about what flight path they're going to be. The pilot figures that out, what they want to be flying, and then I just help them get there. But the shortest distance between 2 points is going to be a straight line, but on a globe, it's going to be a straight line that's going to follow the curve of the earth. That's going to be your starting point of, well, I want to fly the shortest distance. I'm not going to intentionally fly a longer distance. And then you add in prevailing wind patterns. Aircraft will fly slightly longer flights distance-wise if they can get a very strong tailwind. You know what? I can fly this path here and it's going to be, a 500-mile flight. But if I go 50 miles south and get into the jet stream, maybe it's going to be a 500 and instead of a 500-mile flight, it's going to be 570, 580-mile flight distance-wise. But if I get a 100-knot tailwind, oh man, I'll actually get there 25 minutes sooner. Save gas, get passengers there quicker, all that kind of stuff. So they will start with the shortest distance and then look at prevailing wind patterns and go, what adjustments would I make on that? And if you had a globe and you looked at that, how do I find the shortest distance between, those ones that might come close? What is it? Johannesburg, South Africa to Sydney, Australia, that kind of thing. Or Johannesburg to, Buenos Aires in Argentina, like those kinds of things, flights that might get close to the South Pole. The shortest distance is actually nowhere close to the South Pole. So no one's going to fly over it if it's drastically out of their way.
That's a weak answer.
The best I got.
That was the weakest answer I've ever heard.
When I see you in November at the Builders Summit, we'll go and buy a globe and I'll explain it better.
No. we should do a flat earth episode. I'm actually going to label this podcast Flat Earth with Jonathan Bradford, so we'll get some viewers.
You're just looking for clickbait there, are you?
Well, we talked about it. We gave it a good 15 minutes. Yeah, John. Okay, your camera cut out there for a second.
Sorry about that.
Well, if you can make it to the Builder Summit, that would be awesome. I don't want you to commit to anything on.
Well, I wanted to go last year, but it just didn't work out with my schedule. But yeah, this year I've got enough advance notice. I will strive to be there. I would love to be there.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring you in on a. I had no intentions of pressuring you here and going over all those Builder Summit speakers, but
That's totally okay. I was happy. You said we can get together and talk without any pre-planned topics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that can either be very easy or very hard.
Yeah. And it went south fast.
Yeah. Hey, we avoided so many of the other controversial topics that we could have talked about.
Like what? All right.
Well, if I bring them up, we wouldn't be avoiding them.
Mm-hmm. All right. You come on again sometime?
Yeah, I'm happy to come on. I'm probably going to be one of your lower rated shows.
No.
Probably not going to get a lot of people wanting to listen to a show that I am on.
There's usually 480 people on YouTube right now watching, and right now there are 4.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. No, they're just busy. It's Resurrection Sunday.
That's true. And we could talk about that.
But we're out of time. We did talk about Resurrection Sunday, didn't we? We did. Well, we talked about. Well, we did. Did we talk about it?
I don't know.
Every day is Resurrection Sunday.
Every day is definitely a day to celebrate the resurrection.
Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah. The proof that God is who he says he is and Christ is who he says he is, and that we will one day be resurrected ourselves.
My friend John Williams says, he's here and that's all you need to know. That's all you need. All right. I'll wrap it up. I hope I hope you guys had a great Resurrection Sunday. You're probably getting this on the podcast feed on Monday, the Monday after. Thanks for listening. If you appreciate what you've listened to, which today has just been a conversation with another brother in Christ, and if you appreciate what Bible Thumping Wingnut is doing here on the network, please consider supporting us. Click on Bible Thumping Wingnut and click on support our ministry. We are looking to get 50 Patreon supporters ASAP because right now, month to month, we are running in the negative. So if you can help out, a lot of people are running in the negative. So that's understandable. So if you've got a little extra and you've given to your local assembly and you're blessed by this ministry, please consider becoming a supporter of the BTWN network. Thank you very much. And send your feedback to BibleThumpingWingnut at gmail.com. BibleThumpingWingnut@gmail.com. And maybe I'll read it here on the podcast and answer your question or comments or your hate mail, whatever it may be. Thank you, Jonathan and Bradford, for your time. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure for being here.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. And again, if you're just watching, there is a video you can click on the description of this podcast. Until next week, take care and God bless.